Today I want to go over King Darius' curse once again, but this time in in a little bit slightly different context. But I want to point out the nations who have crossed the Jerusalem and Temple red line concerning King Darius' curse. Before I get started, just pointing out that I'm wearing the clothing of shame and the yellow star that Christians, European Christians, forced the Jews to wear during the Crusades and during the Holocaust. And let all those who suffered at the hands of these Christians, who the Christians themselves wear the mark of the beast. They have and they also have the number of the beast's name, and they also worship the image of the beast every Sunday. That graven image that stands that's up in the air in front of them. They worship that image of the beast. Let the victims of these criminals, these crusader criminals, be subject to condemnation by the victims of these criminals, these crusaders. So, to get started, I'm going to go back to Haggai 2, verses 18 through 22. And then quickly I will go to Ezra 6 and verse 12. This is Jehovah speaking through Haggai to the Jews concerning the temple. Actually, I will start in verse 15. And now I pray you, consider this day and upward. What day is that? The 10th verse says the 24th day of the 9th month. That is the day of the dedication of the temple, aka today Hanukkah. So here we are in the second day of Hanukkah, the dedication of the temple right now. So I will go back to verse 15. And now I pray you, consider from this day and upward, from before or from when a stone was laid upon a stone in the temple of Jehovah, since those days were when one came to a heap of 20 measures, or wanted to go get a heap of 20 measures, there was only 10 available. And when one came to the press vat to draw out 50 vessels out of the press, there was but 20. I smote you with blasting, with mildew, with hail, and all the labors from your hands, but you turned not to me, says Jehovah. Now consider this day, from this day, beginning with this day. When it says from this day, it means beginning with this day. That's when the process begins. And upward and forward, from the 24th day of the 9th month, even from the day the foundation of Jehovah's temple was laid, consider it. He says it over and over and over and over again. So are we to ignore it? No, we must consider it, remember it, keep it in our hearts forever. Why? Is the seed yet in the barn, as yet the vine, the fig tree, and the pomegranate, and the olive tree has not brought forth? But from this day I will bless you. Verse 20, and again the word of Jehovah came unto Haggai in the 24th day of what month? Well, you guessed it, the 9th month, saying, speak to Zerubbabel, governor of Judah, saying, I will shake the heavens and the earth. I will overthrow the throne of kingdoms. I will destroy the strength of the kingdoms of the heathen. I will overthrow the chariots and those that ride in them. And horses and the riders shall all come down, every one by the sword of his brother. In that day, saith Jehovah of hosts, I will take you, O Zerubbabel, my servant, the son of Shealtiel, saith Jehovah, and I will make you as a sign, for I have chosen you. Now, so we will go to Ezra 6, like I said. And you must remember that Haggai the prophet, this was in the days when the temple was being built. The temple began to be built in the days of Darius, the king of Persia. And when you read in verse 16 through 18, you will see that the people of Israel who came back at the behest of Darius the king and Zerubbabel, the governor, at that time obeyed the word of Jehovah, because he said to them, remember this day, keep that day. So they did. The Feast of Dedication, Hanukkah. Verse 16, and the children of Israel, the priests and the Levites, and the rest of the children of the captivity, kept the dedication of this house of Elohim with joy, and offered at the dedication of this house of Jehovah 100 bullocks, 200 rams, 400 rams, and for a sin offering for all Israel, 12 he-goats, according to the number of each of the 12 tribes of Israel. And they set the priests in their division, Levites in their course, for the service of Jehovah, which is at Jerusalem, as it was written in the book of Moses. So they did do exactly as Jehovah said. At that point, he began to bless them again. Now, but on that day is the day where it begins, where it starts, or what starts. The destruction of the nations. Why? For violating the words of Darius, the king of Persia. So, Darius, because the Arphaxidites, which were basically Syrians, were interfering with Jerusalem and the temple, just as the Arphaxidites and others are interfering with Jerusalem today. But see, the temple is destroyed now. See, the curse is there because the temple got destroyed. There can be no new temple until the destroyed temple has its vengeance. Let me say that again. There can be no new temple until Zerubbabel / Herod's temple exacts revenge. Now, I've pointed out to all that in the book of Revelation, the temple that is coming is our Father in heaven and the Messiah, the Son. And I stand by that statement. I stand with John on that. Now, so, Darius made an order, made a decree, let the work of this house of Elohim alone. Let the governors of the Jews and the elders of the Jews build this house in its place. Moreover, I make a decree, what you shall do to the elders of these Jews for the building of this house of Elohim, that the king's goods, even the tribute beyond the river, forthwith expenses be given unto these men, that they be not hindered, and that they which have need of both young bullocks and rams and lambs for the burnt offering of the Elohim of heaven, salt, wheat, and wine, and oil, according to the appointment of the priests which are at Jerusalem, that it be given to them day by day, every single day, without fail, that they might offer sacrifices of sweet savors to the Elohim of heaven, and pray for Darius and his son's life. Which means that Darius was a believer, and he was a servant, a Gentile servant of our Father in heaven, the Holy One of Israel. I have also made a decree that whomsoever shall alter this word, let timber be pulled down from his house, and being set up, let him be hanged thereon, and let his house be made a dunghill for this. And the Elohim that has caused his name to dwell there, destroy all kings and all people that shall put forth their hand to alter and or to destroy this house of Elohim, which is at Jerusalem. I, Darius, have made a decree, let it be done with speed. Now, I, Henry Schwarry, have no power, no authority to bring down curses upon anyone. However, Darius did have the authority and had the power to do so. So today, I'm not going to render a curse upon anyone, any nation, any kingdom. No one. I am merely going to point out certain nations that are cursed because of what they have done. I will start with what happened in 70 AD. Titus, within, 2 years after he took power, he died. And Rome received their first down payment of the curse that is coming upon Rome in the not too distant future. What is that? Well, Mount Vesuvius blew up and destroyed not Rome. This is the reason why Rome is yet to receive its punishment, but destroyed Pompeii and Herculaneum. And Rome is going to be destroyed in much the same manner. There is a curse on Rome, but not just Rome, folks. Concerning the episode of 70 AD, Syria is cursed because Syria joined in the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple. Arabs, of course, the Syrians are Arpaxidites. The Arabs also participated, and therefore they are cursed. The Macedonians, the Greeks, one of the Roman legions was the Macedonian legion. They are under this curse. They are cursed for what they have done. They have laid their hand against Jerusalem, against the temple. Now, I'm going to check. There's no way I can go through all of them today, so I will just do the best I can. So during the Crusades, France, France participated in the campaigns in the Holy Land. I believe it was called the Catholic Crusade, but there were others. It says this was the First Crusade. This is the one that I wanted to get to, the First Crusade. 1095 through 1099 was the first of a number of crusades that attempted to capture the Holy Land, called for by Urban II at the Council of Clermont. He called for a military expedition to aid the Byzantine Empire, which had recently lost most of Anatolia to the Turks. Resulting military expedition of primarily Frankish nobles, known as the Prince's Crusade, not only recaptured Anatolia, but went to conquer the Holy Land, which had fallen to Islamic expansion in as early as the 7th century and culminated in July of 1099 in the reconquest of Jerusalem and the establishment of the Kingdom of Jerusalem. That would be the Latin Kingdom of Jerusalem. It became a crusader state. And by doing this, the French are under a curse. The curse of Darius. The Persian king. Now, let's look at the Second Crusade. Now, we must remember the First Crusade was marked from the very beginning by the slaughter of all the Jews that they could find in Europe. The Second Crusade, 1147 through 1149, was a second major crusade launched from Europe as a Catholic Latin holy war against Islam. The Second Crusade was started in response to the fall of the county of Edessa in 1144 to the forces of Zengi. The county had been founded during the First Crusade by King Baldwin of Boulogne in 1098. While it was the first Crusader state to be founded, it was also the first to fall. The Second Crusade was announced by Eugene III, once again, man at the Vatican, and was the first of the Crusades to be led by European kings, namely Louis VII of France, Conrad III of Germany, with the help of a number of other European nobles. The armies of the two kings marched separately across Europe. After crossing Byzantine territory in Anatolia, both armies were separately defeated by the Seljuk Turks. The main Western Christian source, Odo of the Uil, and Syriac Christian sources claim that the Byzantine Emperor Manuel Komnenos secretly hindered the Crusaders' progress, particularly Anatolia, whereas he has alleged to have deliberately ordered Turks to attack them. Louis and Conrad and the remnants of their armies reached Jerusalem, once again bringing a curse upon not only France now, but Germany. Reached Jerusalem and participated in 1148 in an ill-advised attack on Damascus. The crusade in the east was a failure for the Crusaders and a great victory for the Muslims. It would ultimately have a key influence on the fall of Jerusalem and give rise to the Third Crusade at the end of the 12th century. The only significant Christian success of the Second Crusade came to a combined force of 13,000 Flemish, Frisian, Norman, English, Scottish, and German crusaders in 1147 traveling from England by ship to the Holy Land. The army stopped and helped the smaller 7,000 Portuguese army in the capture of Lisbon, expelling its Moorish occupants. Now we will go to the Third Crusade, and I will mention again that each crusade was marked by murder of the Jews. Every single crusade they did this. The Third Crusade, 1189 through 1192, was also known as the King's Crusade, was an attempt by European leaders to reconquer the Holy Land from Saladin. The campaign was largely successful in capturing the important cities of Acre and Jaffa, and reversing most of Saladin's conquest, but it failed to capture Jerusalem. The emotional, which Jerusalem was the emotional and spiritual motivation of the crusade. After the failure of the Second Crusade, the Zengid dynasty controlled a unified Syria and engaged in conflict with the Fatimid rulers of Egypt. The Egyptian and Syrian forces were ultimately unified under Saladin, who employed them to reduce the Christian states and recapture Jerusalem in 1187. Spurred by religious zeal, Henry II of Europe, of England, I should say, and King Philip II of France, known as Philip Augustus, ended their conflict with each other to lead a new crusade. The death of Henry in 1189, however, meant the English continent came under the command of his successor, King Richard I of England, known as Richard the Lionheart in French. Well, I can't speak French, I'm sorry. The elderly Roman Emperor Frederick Barbarossa also responded to the call to arms, leading a massive army across Anatolia, but he drowned in a river in Asia Minor on the 10th of June, 1190, before reaching the Holy Land. His death caused tremendous grief among the German crusaders, and most of his troops returned home. After the crusaders had driven the Muslims from Acre, Philip, in company with Frederick's successor Leopold V, Duke of Austria, left the Holy Land in August 1191. On September 2nd, 1192, Richard and Saladin finalized a treaty granting Muslim control over Jerusalem, but allowing unarmed Christian pilgrims and merchants to visit the city. Richard departed the Holy Land on the 9th of October. The successes of the Third Crusade allowed the Crusaders to maintain considerable states in Cyprus and on the Syrian coast. However, the failure to recapture Jerusalem would lead to the Fourth Crusade. The Fourth Crusade, 1202 through 04, was a Western European armed expedition called by Innocent III, originally intended to reconquer Muslim-controlled Jerusalem by any means of an invasion through Egypt. Instead, a sequence of events culminated in the Crusaders sacking the city of Constantinople, the capital of the Christian-controlled Byzantine Empire, and that was the Babylon the Great that was burned with fire, written about in the book of Revelation. But in the last days, the Babylon come out of her, my people, are the cities of this world. So, once again, this wasn't the Third Crusade or the Fourth Crusade was initially about retaking Jerusalem, but it ended up being the 10 toes and the little horn destroying that great city, the greatest city in all the earth in those days, fulfilling a prophecy. Now we'll go to the Fifth Crusade. Are you starting to see a pattern yet, folks? I hope you didn't get bored, sign off, because I'm getting somewhere with this. Or I'm going somewhere with this. The Fifth Crusade, 1213 through 1221, was an attempt by Western Europeans to reacquire Jerusalem and the rest of the Holy Land by first conquering the powerful Ayyubid state in Egypt. Now, if I haven't mentioned before, Egypt is also under this curse because they took control of Jerusalem too. And Jordan is under a curse because they took control of Jerusalem too. Now, Innocent III and his successor Honorius III organized crusading armies led by King Andrew of Hungary, Leopold VI, Duke of Austria, and an attack against Jerusalem ultimately left the city in Muslim hands. Later, in 1218, a German army led by Oliver of Cologne and a mixed army of Dutch, Flemish, and Frisian soldiers led by the Count of Holland, William I, joined the crusade in order to attack Damietta, I can't pronounce that, I'm sorry, in Egypt. They allied in Anatolia with the Sultan of Rum. Rum? Yes, Rum in Arabic is Rome. Just so you know. Which attacked the Ayyubids in Syria in an attempt to free the Crusaders from fighting on two fronts. After occupying the port of Damietta, the Crusaders marched south toward Cairo in July 1221, but were turned back after the dwindling supplies led to a forced retreat. A nighttime attack by Sultan al-Kamil resulted in a great number of Crusader losses and eventually in the surrender of the army. Al-Kamil agreed to an 8-year peace agreement with Europe. Now, Sixth Crusade. The Sixth Crusade started in 1228 in an attempt to regain Jerusalem. Do you notice a trend here? The Crusaders think they own the Holy Land. It is a delusion. They do not own the Holy Land. It began 7 years after the failure of the Fifth Crusade, involving very little actual fighting. The diplomatic maneuvering of the Holy Roman Emperor Frederick II resulted in the Kingdom of Jerusalem regaining some control over Jerusalem for much of the ensuing 15 years, as well as over the areas of the Holy Land. You know, don't forget the Kingdom of Jerusalem was a kingdom set up as a crusader state, which brought curses upon the Latin Europeans and the Holy Roman Empire. Frederick II, Holy Roman Emperor, had involved himself broadly in the Fifth Crusade, sending troops from Germany, but he failed to accompany the army directly, despite the encouragement of Honorius III and later Gregory IX, as he needed to consolidate his position in Germany and Italy before embarking on a crusade. However, Frederick again promised to go on a crusade after his coronation as emperor in 1220 by Honorius III. In 1225, Frederick married Yolanda of Jerusalem, also known as Isabella, the daughter of John of Brienne, nominal ruler of the kingdom of Jerusalem. So basically, what this means is the Crusaders once again gained control over Jerusalem to a certain extent. Once again, bringing a curse upon them, as Darius the king of Persia said that anyone who altered or put forth their hand to alter or to destroy Jerusalem or the temple are to be destroyed. And once again, the Seventh Crusade was a crusade led by Louis of France from 1248 to 1254. His troops were defeated by the Egyptian army once again. Now, here's the question. How did the Vatican get control of Mount Zion? We'll find out. We'll go to IsraelNationalNews.com on February 19th, 2014. Article says, Vatican pushing for control of Mount Zion. Christian leaders push Israel to hand over control of areas housing King David's tomb and the Last Supper Hall. Christian leaders reportedly pressured Israel to turn over control of Mount Zion in Jerusalem during a clandestine meeting of senior city officials, once again putting forth their hand to alter the words of the king of Persia. Meeting took place Tuesday in the office of Attorney Amnon Merhav, the Director General of the Jerusalem Municipality. It was attended by officials from the Prime Minister's office, President's office, Tourism Ministry, Police, Kotel, Rabbi's office, and more. During the meeting, representatives of Christian groups in the capital pushed Jerusalem leaders to give the Catholic Church control over Mount Zion area that included the Hall of the Last Supper. There have been reports that Israel's government is planning to turn the building in question over to the Vatican prior to the Little Horns expected a visit in May. And there, you folks, you have the reason the Vatican, the Catholic Church, is in control of Mount Zion. And as I have pointed out about the curse of Darius, any kingdom or people who sets his hand to alter any part of the holy city or the temple, that kingdom and those people, the people who he rule over, are to be destroyed. Not my words. No. The servant of Jehovah, the Gentile servant of Jehovah, our Father in heaven, his name is Darius, king of Persia, gave that order. And Jehovah, our Father in heaven, honored that decree. Here is what he says is going to happen because of the controversy of Mount Zion, whom the Vatican and the Catholic Church have, by pressure, for nearly 2,000 years, forced Israel to hand over Mount Zion. How many times have I read this? Verse 8. For it is the day of Jehovah's vengeance, and the year of recompenses, plural, for the controversy of Zion. This proves that our Father in heaven has honored the words of Darius, the king of Persia. And right here in verse 4, it says, and all the hosts of heaven shall be dissolved, and the heavens shall be rolled together as a scroll, and all their hosts shall fall down as a leaf falleth from the vine, and as a falling fig from the fig tree. That's the day of judgment. Why? Because, among many other things, the Catholics are in control of Mount Zion. It says right there in verse 8, for it is the day of Jehovah's vengeance and the year of recompenses for the controversy of Zion. So, and this is the reason why in the book of Revelation talks about all of those who have the mark of the beast either in their forehead or on their forehead or in their hand. What does that mean, the mark of the beast? The mark of the beast is what is called today the cross. That's the mark of the beast. That is the emblem of Rome. The mark of the beast. Okay? And they put it on their foreheads on Ash Wednesday. And they also, with their right hand, exactly as it is written in Revelation, make a mark with it. They use their right hand to make that mark across their chest. Okay? Now, are there any who call themselves, who are considered associated with Christians, who do not do that, who do not make the mark of the beast with their hand or on their forehead? Well, yes, there are people who don't do that, who the world considers to be Christians. They are the Amish among those. I don't know about the Friends. I know that there are certain among the Mennonites who don't do it, and certain among them who do. But my point is, this covers almost all of Christianity today. And that is the reason why I do not associate myself with Christianity at all. Well, there's many reasons why I don't. The mark of the beast and the number of his name. What is the number of his name? The number is a Roman numeral. It is 10, but it is in the form of an X. And it represents a name. Christ. You see, Christ was a title for not Israel's Messiah, but a false Messiah that preceded Israel's Messiah in the Gentile world. It goes all the way back to Mithraism, folks. And of course, they worship the image of the beast. The apostles told the Gentiles that there were 4 things they were supposed to abstain from: eating strangled meat, eating blood, sexual immorality, and idolatry. So no worshiping of graven images were allowed. What do Christians do today? Every Sunday, they worship what? The image of Rome, the image of the beast, the image of the Vatican that the Vatican has set forth for them to worship. And it's not just the Catholics. These folks, every one of these religions, including the Baptists, they all do the same thing. They're all Catholics, except for those who don't worship the image of the beast, except for those who don't draw a cross or on their forehead, which is the mark of the beast, and those who don't have the number of his name, the X, Christos, the false god of Mithraism, you see. So, this curse of Isaiah 34 is going to come down upon all the nations concerning the controversy over Mount Zion. And the thing that Donald Trump did was partly right, but the one thing that he did that troubles me was he demanded that the status quo remain. Well, the status quo cannot remain, folks. And I will tell you that Europe Christendom is obsessed with ownership of Jerusalem and Mount Zion. As you can see, me going through all the past crusades, they had one goal and one goal only, and they will do anything and everything, including murder, mass murder of Jews, in order to retain that goal. That would be the ownership of Jerusalem and the Holy Land. That brings a curse upon European Christianity. And so, here we are. One day after the first day of Hanukkah, and the nations are preparing to fight over Jerusalem and the Holy Land. And it will be a day of visitation, a day of recompenses. You folks who want to claim that there is another tribulation upon Israel, it indeed will be a time of Jacob's trouble. But as I have caught many religions refusing to utter the next words that comes from that scripture, I will say it for you. But Israel shall be saved out of it. The time of Jacob's trouble is going to be perpetrated by the Gentiles. Gentiles who call themselves Christians are going to perpetrate this great evil. And the tribulation will be upon them, not upon Israel, because Israel is going to be taken out of the tribulation. You don't believe it? Jeremiah 30 and verse 7. Alas, that day is great. There is none like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble. But he, Jacob, shall be saved. Saved, saved, saved out of it. Romans 11, verse 27. And so all Israel shall be saved. For out of Zion shall come the deliverer, and shall turn ungodliness from Jacob. Verse 27, for this is my covenant unto them, the 12 tribes of Israel when I shall take away their sins. Now, Israel has a yoke upon its neck. Who has placed this yoke upon Israel's neck? The Christians. Verse 8, for it shall come to pass in that day, says Jehovah of hosts, that I will break his yoke from off your neck, and burst your bonds, and strangers shall no more serve themselves of Israel. But Israel will serve Jehovah their Elohim and the Son of David their King, whom I will raise up unto them. Therefore, fear not, O my servant Jacob, saith Jehovah, neither be dismayed, O Israel, for lo, I will save you from afar, and your seed from the land of their captivity. And Jacob shall return, and shall be in rest, and be in quiet, and none shall make them afraid. For I am with you, says Jehovah, to save you. Though I make a full end of all nations where I have scattered you, yet I will not make a full end of you. Which means Israel shall rise again and be great again, and the nations shall all be destroyed. And there will be very few left, according to Isaiah 34. I will keep saying these things over and over and over as long as the Almighty gives me breath in my body. Though nobody or virtually no one will listen to what I have to say, I will keep doing it. Not because I desire honor among men, because if I desired honor among men, I would not be doing what I'm doing right now. But this is the honor from the Almighty, the Holy One of Israel. Honor from Him is what I desire. I hope you feel the same way.